I'm going to show you another thing which probably is not the first thing on your mind when you start encoding the inscriptions, but you will have this nonetheless. And maybe then I can show you at some point if I find out that it could be rendered differently in the output of the document verse. You can have verse inscriptions in EpiDoc. This is not also not something that is quite hard to deal with, but we have to say a few words about this nonetheless. This is how epigraphic verse is often rendered in editions. Usually, you know, in the printed editions, one line equals one line in the original document. But when you're presenting verse inscriptions, one line can actually be equivalent to one line of verse. And, you know, these vertical pipes actually mean the actual lines on the stone. And this is how the enumeration goes in line together with the text. And you may want to encode a verse inscription in such a way that both shows the physical lines on the stone and also shows the verse lines. And then you can switch between two types of output, the one that shows the physical lines and the other that shows the verse lines. This is how the physical lines are displayed, are not displayed, are encoded with line beginning or line break. And where there is a new line in the middle of the word, as I told you, you put the additional attribute break equals no. So this is one type of structure, and now you can superimpose on it another type of structure, which is the metrical structure. Here you see here all the elements are empty elements put in a main core element of the text, which is called AB, anonymous block, as you learned this morning. It's either in AB or in P, standing for paragraph, where all the text of the inscription stands. AB is the preferable in our case. The non-empty elements, L, which stands for line. So L is something different from line break. And you should note this. This stands for a line in a verse. And it is a non-empty element which has an opening tag and a closing tag. The opening tag opens where the element, the verse starts, and closes where the verse ends. And then you have line number one, line number two. If this is something that has a larger structure to it, such as elegiac distichs, you might want to also indicate the fact that this is a group of verses, a verse group or a strophe or something like this, in our case a distich, by encompassing all this in the LG element, which stands for line group. So all the text is one line group, which is hexameter plus pentameter. And it is also visually rendered like this. And line number one, this is the hexametric line. Line number two this is the pentametric line. And you can also have the attribute met, which stands for meter, as you can guess, and an attribute which value of the attribute which shows what kind of verse is this. This is an elegiac verse, an elegiac distich. You can have this also in your separate verses. So The whole line group is eligiadistic, and verse number 1 is hexameter, and verse number 2 is pentameter. If for some reason you want to include this as a searchable option in your corpus. There is also a very you can have the possibility of a very thorough representation of the metrical value of each poetic line, which the pluses standing for long syllables and the minuses standing for short syllables. And here by a string of pluses and minuses, you can describe all your verse. For example, the first step here is a spondeus because it has two longs, followed by a dactyl, followed by another dactyl, etc., etc. And the verse ends with two longs, ergois, which is two pluses. So you can have a really very detailed representation of the real metrical value. This is the real metrical value of the actual verses, as opposed to the abstract hypothetical meter, which can theoretically include alternation between spondees and dactyls in each and every step of this. If you have lacunae in a metrical inscription, and you don't know how to fill the lacunae, but you know exactly what part of the metrical pattern is missing, which is indicated in this way in a printed edition. You can also indicate this by using EpiDoc. For example, here, this is how the verse should read, and the first part of the pentameter, excluding the last two syllables, is lost, but we can indicate that this is the first part of a pentameter in this way. So we put the gap for our lacunae, of course the line break, and then we use the seg, which stands for segment, the seg element, which encloses the gap on both sides, and then inside of it, this met attribute, which we met before that, with the value indicating exactly this, that we have a metrical pattern missing from this inscription, which is exactly one long, one short, one short, one long, one short. So this translates to this in the square brackets that you see above